Hi, I'm Colton Herta, and this is Cars and Culture with Jason Stein.
Colton, what a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome in.
Thank you. Cool to be here.
And you had a heck of a weekend. Let's start there. I know it was a little rain soaked, but we're doing the month of Indy here. You've already had your experience at Indy, at least one form of Indy, and you won it on the road course. Tell me a little bit about that. It was an interesting weekend for you.
It was a crazy one for sure. Anytime you have those conditions of wet to dry or dry to wet, it makes the race so interesting from not only the fans' perspective because there's a lot going on, but also the drivers. It's the toughest conditions that we ever drive in, and we had that happen twice. So it was probably one of the most difficult races I've ever done in my career, just because the aspect of so much that's unknown and going through the race of grip levels that are constantly changing every single lap on the track, and you never know what's gonna happen next.
Indianapolis, what does it mean to you? We've had Dario Franchitti on the show already this month, Danny Sullivan. You're here with us, and you're at Indy, and the big race is coming. What does it mean to you?
It's the crown jewel of I would say all of racing, right? It's the biggest one day event in the world. It's so much tradition and history in it, and it's really why a lot of us in IndyCar wanted to get here was to be able to be in the Indy 500, and with the ultimate goal of at some point winning it.
And growing up, of course, with your father's own success there, obviously Indianapolis held a special place for you. What are some of your earliest memories?
Yeah, my earliest memory is my dad finished third one year. I think it was in '05 or '04. So I would have been 4 or 5 at the time. And that was like my first kind of memories of the speedway. And then great memories of when my dad was running Dan Weldon in 2011, and they won the race there. I was there for that, and was sitting on the inside of turn 4 when JR Hildebrand hit the wall coming out the last turn on the last lap, and Dan going by on the front straight. So that was pretty spectacular. That's probably my greatest memory of being here. And yeah, it's just a magical place. It's always fun just to be at the speedway, even when cars aren't running.
Were you, as that 4 or 5 year old, I have to imagine you were just in awe of everything anyway. But the fact that your dad was racing, the fact that you were part of a racing family had to, I mean, you were in another realm, I'm guessing.
Right. And
And you were also on the track then already too by about 5 or 6.
Yeah, I started racing go-karts when I was 5. So but yeah, I didn't when you're that young, it doesn't really like appear like how special it is to have like a father that drove, and to get to know all the drivers, and all the drivers recognize you and stuff. So it was really cool for me back then, but it didn't seem like anything out of the ordinary. But for sure, looking back on it, it's very, very cool to have those memories that not many people have the chance to get.
When you come back now, what are your some of your favorite things that you'd like to experience? Obviously, outside of the track. I mean, do you have a special place that you like to sit at the speedway to kind of take it all in? Is there a certain ritual that is kind of more of interest to you?
Um, I mean, like I said earlier, like there's so much history in this, and in the events that happen leading up to it, the parade, obviously the milk. They don't do the balloons anymore, but when they did the balloons, the release of the balloons, the flyover, just all the festivities back home again in Indiana. Obviously during the month, I don't have that much time I don't really have any time to go out and watch, but when I was younger, I always did. I loved just walking around. There wasn't any specific spot. But I remember walking around and being on the mountains on the infield, and then also getting out to the grandstands, because during the month, we get a lot of fans out here, but it's still empty in the stands and stuff. So you can really get a view of anywhere, wherever you want, which is awesome.
Let's go back to your start. You mentioned 5 years old and karting. How in the world does a 5 year old start karting?
Um, because I was so open to racing, um, I was constantly asking. I think my parents say since I was like 4, but I don't quite remember exactly how it started or when it started. But I remember asking them for a go-kart for as long as I can remember. And they say it was 4, but I didn't end up getting to drive until late when I was 5. And for my 6th birthday, they bought me a go-kart. And then I started racing go-karts when I was 6. And when I was 5 is all testing and seeing if I liked it, which I loved it. Um, and yeah, they would try to get me to do all these other things, play normal sports and soccer and baseball. So I did all that stuff, football, but I just, none of it could, I was never interested, and I'd never wanted to go to practice during the week and stuff. And on the weekends, I would much rather be going and testing or racing my go-kart rather than having to play a soccer game or a football game or something like that.
So the other stuff that was occurring was just a distraction from what you really wanted to do.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I'm hearing.
I think my parents were like normal parents, right? They wanted to see what I really liked in life and what I wanted to do, and wanted to see like do relatively normal activities, but it was never interesting to me. So I think by the time I was maybe 10 or 11, maybe 12, I stopped doing everything completely and just was racing, and that's what I really wanted to do.
Well, and not only racing, but racing in Europe. I mean, making
Mhm.
that kind of commitment at what, 10, 12 years old, all of a sudden you were pursuing a path that you were all in on doing this.
Yeah, so I was 14 at that point. And that's when I moved to racing cars when I was about 12. So I raced go-karts from 6 to around 12 or 13, and started racing in a skip barber series, which a lot of guys go through um, over here in the US. And that's kind of like your first step into racing cars. I did that in a series called Pacific F1600. So Formula Ford racing. And then at 14, I did a little bit of USF 2000, which is the bottom ring of the IndyCar program. So USF 2000, Indy Pro 2000, Indy Lights, and then IndyCar, in that order. And then when I was 14, I moved over to England, and I was racing over there when I was 14, 15, and 16, and got to race against a lot of cool guys. I got to race with George Russell, Lando Norris, and a handful of other names that aren't as recognized, but are still professional drivers in GT racing or Le Mans style racing.
At that point, did you have a handle on the fact that you were definitely working the rungs of racing, that this is exactly what you want to do? In fact, you were too young to go into British F3
Right.
series, right? So you actually had to switch off and go into Euro Formula Open Championships. But did you have a feel for the fact that you were working the rungs of that ladder?
Yeah, and I knew that what my ultimate goal was, right? It was still to get to IndyCar at that point. And so yeah, it was full focus for me to get there. And at that point too, it's not clear on if you're going to make it or not until you really get up to Indy Lights or Formula 2 and you're doing well, either to get into F1 or IndyCar. So it was unclear. I knew I wanted to do it, but it was unclear on if it was for sure going to happen or not. But I was getting results, and it was all going well. And so part of me thought it was only a matter of time till I could get there.
And you mentioned that the goal was to be an Indy driver. The goal was to get into the Indy series, not
Mhm.
necessarily to be a Formula One driver.
No, I always wanted to do Formula One at some point, but I always wanted to make it to IndyCar for sure. It was like my first love of racing was going to the Long Beach Grand Prix growing up in Los Angeles. Going to Long Beach Grand Prix, it was my first race ever. I think it was about 2 weeks old, actually. My father was racing in 2000, um, and I've been almost every year since. So
You were
that's what kind of
two
spiked
you
two
were two
weeks.
weeks old.
Yeah, we had to bring the bus out just so I could go, so my mom could keep me in the bus. So yeah, my first IndyCar race, I was 2 weeks old because I was born in March, right? And it's always that early April
Yep.
date. So, um, yeah, obviously I don't remember anything of that, but I do remember a lot. I do have a lot of memories of going to Long Beach when I was growing up. And that's kind of what like spiked my love for IndyCar, is that race.
The connection to the Andretti family, where did that first start? I mean, have you been hanging around the Andrettis since you were 2 weeks old? I would imagine that might be the case.
Yeah, yeah. So my dad started driving for Michael. So he drove for Andretti Autosport from 2003 to 2008 or 2009 in IndyCar. And then later he switched their sports car program in IMSA, driving the Acura LMP2 car, which was an awesome car at that time also. Um, and so I knew Michael and Mario for the longest time. Mario used to call me Spiky, because I had a mohawk when I was like 6, maybe to like 8. And so yeah, that was so I've known them forever. And same with like a lot of the guys that I'm racing against now, I've known forever too, right? Like Tony Kanaan was my first ever sponsor, and he sponsored me, gave me some money to run go-karts when I was like 8, I think. Um, yeah, same with Dario, I've known forever, and Elio, I've known forever. A lot of these guys that are still racing and older right now, but yeah, I've known since I was a really young kid.
It's such a tight family, isn't it? And the
Yeah.
culture is very unique, not only to the drivers and the owners, but to the circuit. Tell me a little bit about that family aspect of IndyCar that a lot of people wouldn't know.
Yeah, I mean, we are kind of like a traveling circus, so we spend a lot of time together. We're at a lot of races together. And yeah, I think it kind of stems from, at least for the drivers, just a mutual respect of what we do, which you need, right? When driving 240 miles an hour, you need that respect, because things can go wrong really fast, and if people don't respect each other, it just ends up bad. So yeah, I think a mutual respect kind of ties out all of that stuff together, and makes us kind of one big family. We're on the road a lot, like I said, and so we get to know each other very fast. And um, so yeah.
So it's competitive, but there's also a fraternity there, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I I'm pretty neutral person. Maybe some people might have a different idea of one end or the other, but um yeah, like it's all about respect in our sport, and that's kind of what gets you far. And so if you have the respect of everybody, then that's kind of like one of the greatest goals in racing.
How much support have you had from others? You mentioned Dario, uh, Ilio. What kind of advice are they giving you now?
Well, I mean, they don't give me much advice if I'm racing against them anymore, but I think early on, maybe when I was like 15 or 16, I was able to talk. I had a really good conversation actually with Dario about what my plans were. And he's always been very supportive of me and stuff. And obviously he's still around in the paddock a lot, and he works with Ganassi. So he's working over there. And so I see him still. And then Elio is an interesting one, because now we're actually teammates. He drives for Meyer Shank Racing, but we have a technical alliance with them for the last 2 years. So we share data and set up work with him and his team, and so we are kind of teammates. So it's interesting, especially when you have a guy like that that's won this at the Speedway 4 times. It's a really good asset to have, kind of selfishly, for the month of May.
Let's get to that crown jewel that you talked about, which is winning and finishing off the month of May by winning the Indy 500. What does that mean? What could that mean for you?
I mean, everyone always says it's life changing. I can't really comment on that because I've never won it, but it is like the ultimate goal in racing, right? Like, to win one race, there is no one race that's bigger than the Indy 500, in all the series, and it might be the biggest thing to win in sports. It's so big, it's massive, that in all these sports, it's all about championships, and there's never just one baseball game or one football game that you want to win. um right, it's all about getting to the Super Bowl or making it into the championship, the World Series for baseball and stuff. So for us, it's kind of bizarre in this sport that it's one event that you really want to win. And there's nothing that plays out in all these other races that get put into this. And it is the toughest race that I do each year. There's so many pit stops, there's so much strategy involved, that, to win it, everyone always asks you what will it mean to win it. I have no clue until it actually happens, but I know it's going to be an amazing feeling.
Is it the fact that it's 500 miles at such an intense level at the speeds, as you mentioned, the strategy that makes it more difficult than other races?
Yeah, and it's more of a mental race, like we had yesterday. Obviously, these cars are very physical to drive, but some places are way more than others, and Indy's on the probably the lightest scale of that, just because the banking isn't really high, the steering inputs aren't really big, so you're never really tired at the end of the race. You're just mentally like finished, which is like what we had at the Indy GP this year with the wet to dry. The steering never got heavy, but it was just mentally took a toll on you because you were so focused for so long. So that's like the biggest thing with Indy is staying in there for the whole 2.5 hours and being, wired the whole time.
Is your dad giving you any advice?
For sure. Yeah.
What has he said?
I think early on in my career it was a lot more basic stuff, and but the best thing that he's told me is to like keep your head up. This sport is unlike any other sport. I think you see it sometime in, I don't know, maybe baseball where guys are in a slump and hitting wise or whatever. We can get that easily in IndyCar racing, right? You're always compared to everybody, and especially your teammates. If you're getting beat and it goes on for maybe 3 races in a row, you think, oh, maybe he's just better than me. It's easy to think that. So you do need that kind of headstrong and a little bit of arrogance in this sport to always think that you are the best there every single weekend. And it's such a mental thing in this sport, and that's probably like the biggest feedback that I've gotten from my father. Of course, there's been a ton of technical advice and stuff like that, but the biggest things that stick with me are like ones like that.
How about specifically to the Indy 500?
To the Indy 500, for sure, like the biggest thing, and this is like not just my dad because he's driven, anybody will tell you this, is to not go loose. You don't want the rear of your car to go loose. So taking steps during the month of May during our practices, to secure that rear but still make the front where it can still turn nicely. So that's like the biggest threat. And obviously things will come up during the month where I won't be so sure about what I'm feeling with the car or what I need. And he always, he's been in every situation a driver can be in from his 14-year career in IndyCar. So he's always really good at explaining, oh, it might be this or it might be that, and gives me a little bit of feedback there.
You are the youngest driver to ever win a race in the series. What did that mean to you? I mean, everybody else told you that you were that, but what did it mean to you?
It was, it felt special just because, I think more because it's my first ever win, but then also to be the youngest ever is pretty spectacular. Yeah, I was really put into a great program my rookie year that I was able to win. We had cars to win, which doesn't happen to a lot of people. So yeah, I mean, I give a lot of props to the team for putting me in the position of that, but to be the youngest winner, it's really cool. It's cool to be in the IndyCar record books. For however long that may be. I think, as people just keep getting younger and younger. I think my dad's rookie year is like 20, he's like 23 or 24, and that was relatively normal at the time. Whereas now guys are coming in 18, 19. So, and I could see it getting even younger than that. So I wouldn't be surprised if down a few years that it gets broken.
Colton, you made a lot of headlines recently when McLaren announced that you would test a Formula One car for them. How long was that process in the making for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was always a goal of mine was to be able to get in one of those cars and see what they're actually like. So I'm very fortunate that Zach and Andreas Seidel and all the guys at McLaren have given me this chance to be able to kind of just dip my feet in and see what an F1 car is really like, and hopefully it's mutually beneficial, and I can give good feedback on the car and something that they can use this year on their cars. But for me, yeah, it's going to be so cool just to be able to finally get a hold of one of those things and see what I can do in it.
When did Zach? You've probably known Zach for a long time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
He's been around the racing world. We've had him on this program talking about how long he was involved in IndyCar. When did Zach first approach you? When did you get to know him?
I probably first met Zach in maybe late 2018, early 2019, when they were looking at doing an IndyCar program. And so I got to know him through IndyCar in that aspect. And I actually came close to signing with them one year. And so obviously I had a lot of talks with Zach. But yeah, I don't remember exactly where I was and how it happened, but it all happened very fast. About Zach said, he's interested in letting me test one of their cars. And of course, I was all for it because it's going to be a great opportunity for me just to get in one of those things. So, yeah, I've known Zach for maybe 3 years now, and never really talked about F1 with him. It's always been, just talking about racing in general because he's such a car head. So it's cool that he was, able to get me the opportunity to be testing his cars.
You'll be heading to England at some point here this spring to be fitted for a seat, right?
Yeah, yeah. At the end of June, I'll be going over there, get fit in the seat, and then obviously we'll do some sim work and stuff ahead of preparing for the test.
Do you have any more clarity on where you'll be testing or the kind of time frame?
Yeah, I know when and where I'll be testing for the first set of days, but yeah, it hasn't been released yet, so I'm not sure if I can say or not. But yeah, it'll be before the end of the IndyCar season, and then I think more will come after the end of the IndyCar season. So yeah,
And you've never been in a Formula One car.
never, never. I don't even think I've ever sat in one. So yeah, it'll be a cool experience. Um, yeah, something different. See how they work compared to IndyCar, and yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure.
You mentioned the simulator too. There's a lot of talk about how amazing the simulator is that McLaren has.
Right. Yeah, I got to go over there actually in like 2019. I did some sim work with them. And it was, very interesting to see everything. Whereas, sim work over here, we don't have like in-house sims. It's all done through engine manufacturers, and they pump up most of the money in because it is a lot of money to get those things running and keep them running at a high level. So, um, yeah, it's very interesting. They write their own stuff, all their own code. The cars are their own program and stuff. So it's yeah, it's really cool. Can't wait to get
Well,
back. I haven't been there in so long. So
well, and I've been to that facility. It is something that's out of a James Bond
it is.
film.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. But I mean, obviously the money that they're working with in F1 is also incredible. So you need a facility like that. Um, okay, maybe it doesn't need to look that cool because it looks just like badass and
It
there's so
does
many
look,
layers and levels to it.
yes.
But right, like it's amazing how many people are working in F1 and how much money is it takes to run those cars. So um yeah, it was a really cool experience. It's the first time I've ever been. I think it's the first time. Yeah, the first time I ever went to a race team's factory was then in 2019, and it was definitely a eye-opening experience.
In 2019, I was there as well, and Amanda McLaren was able to give me a tour of the facility,
Mhm.
and all of the trophies from all of the winners through all the years lining the walls. It's a pretty special place.
It's really cool, to see like guys like Emerson's name and trophies from the 80s and the late 70s all
Senna.
the way up. Yeah, Senna, Prost, like all these guys that are massive legends in the sport. Yeah, it's really cool just to see a trophy that says, like March 1981, first place in Estoril, Portugal. Like it's really cool just to be able to see that and how different the trophies were back then to how they are now. It's very interesting.
given the fact that you have this opportunity, this, the testing and the amount of attention that's been now put on this, it's got to be pretty heady stuff for you.
Yeah, yeah, but it's pretty stress free for me, right? I'm just testing the car, so um, get up to speed on my own pace and be able to see what I can do. There's not any pressure from the team side of things for anything, so I'm hoping that it can be, like I said before, it's just mutually beneficial, and I get what I get out of it, which is a really cool time in a race car that I never had the chance to even sit in, and then also hopefully give some feedback to them that they can use in the future for whatever they want.
And you have said Formula One is a serious ambition of yours.
For sure. I think there's a lot of things in my
Why would it not
career.
be?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of things in my career that I want to do. Um, one of those is Formula One, and I think everybody knows how time sensitive this is to be able to get into Formula One. It's very difficult. Um, so yeah, the goal is to reach it and have the chance of winning an F1, which is very hard to do. But then there's a lot of different things that I want to do. I want to race and want to win Le Mans in the 24 hours. Some of the Dakar stuff looks a lot of fun to me. Maybe even do a Daytona 500 at some point. I have no
Hmm.
clue, but it is one of those things, and it is very high on the list, is to get to Formula One and be able to win in F1, which is it's a big goal. It's a steep goal, which a lot of people have the same and never get the opportunity. But um, yeah, I think if I can go fast in an Indy car, there's no reason why I couldn't be fast in a Formula One car.
And it's probably not lost on you that a gentleman named Andretti remains the United States' last race winner
Hmm.
in a decade that you have no connection to, 1978.
Right.
And now you're an Andretti guy, and you have a chance to at least, there's conversation and there's opportunity and one step at a time, but there's a connection back to Andretti for you.
For sure. Yeah. And that's really cool. I mean, I've been to Mario's house before, and that's in Pennsylvania. And he's lived in the same place since he moved to the US,
Nazareth.
same town. Yep. Same town. And so it was really cool. I went to his house, I think maybe it was in like 2019 or something like that. And and the same thing, the trophies were just so cool. The F1 World Championship trophy, and then just race wins from all over the 70s and 80s of IndyCar and Formula One. Um, a whole bunch of different series, IMSA stuff also. So it was very cool to be able to go there and see it. It's really awesome.
Colton, tell me a little bit about your experience in Miami at the recently
Yeah.
completed Formula One race. You just a few years ago, I think you were asking Zach Brown whether you could get an admission ticket.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, McLaren was saying, "Hey, why don't you spend some time with us? Sit with Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo." Now
Right.
you were behind the velvet ropes. What was that like?
It was awesome, just to see how they work, which isn't different to what we're doing here in IndyCar, but it's just amplified a lot more. They have a lot more data. We probably work with an IndyCar about 4 engineers per car, and that's including an engineer that Honda gives us for the engines. And they, excuse me, and they probably have 20 per car,
Wow.
maybe 15 per car on the weekend. And that's not counting all the people that are back at the factory, also giving tech support. So it is a massive operation, and just for that aspect, there's big differences in that. But the way that they work and go about the day is very similar to what we'll do, but just to a way different degree because of all the input and data and engineers that they have. There's a lot of things that are a lot more specific, and we don't do an IndyCar just because we don't have the time and people to be able to do it.
You described the circuit and the atmosphere itself as a music festival that happens to have a race going on.
Yeah, it was very different to like the normal or traditional F1 races that you would get in Europe or even at Coda. I think that the design and the goal of the Miami GP was to, be the highest end Formula One race that there is and have all the glitz and glamour. And it definitely checked those boxes. It was a really cool event to be at and a really different feel to any Formula One race that I've been to. So I enjoyed it. It was really cool to be there and see the track and see Lando again because I hadn't seen him since we were teammates in 2016. So
Yeah, you raced
um,
Formula 4 with them, right?
yeah, yeah. So it's been a long time since I've seen him, which was cool to see and see how he's doing and see how he's progressed as a driver. And yeah, what a cool situation for me to get in and be able to be behind the scenes. So I appreciate everything that they've done on that front to get me out there and let me see all their cool stuff that they do behind the scenes and trust that I'm not gonna run away with that information anywhere.
Life has changed a little bit for Lando as well since you saw him last. How does he describe living within that circus?
He enjoys it and he doesn't know any better, right? Like this is the only professional series that he's raced in. So yeah, he doesn't know what it's like, I guess, on an IndyCar race weekend, or an IMSA race weekend and stuff. So um yeah, the way that he was describing the car and stuff was in really good detail, much better than what we were describing it when we were like 15. So it was cool to see the progression that I know I've made, but then also see it what he's done also has been super cool. And yeah, and then great to meet Daniel also. I've never met him. He actually lives about 20 minutes away from where I grew up now in Los Angeles. So you have to talk a little bit about that, and obviously a very fast race car driver and a guy that's got his a really good head on him and he's really strong in the car and especially outside the car. To see how they describe the race cars is very interesting. Some of the words that they use, which is different to what we would say in IndyCar and some of the slang and so it was sometimes hard to follow. It's like, oh, what rear heave, what is that? Which is same as us calling it a damper or a spring. So there's a lot of little things that you don't know, and then you get over there and they're saying complete different stuff, which is interesting to hear.
Lando, being a good friend of yours, he once had a nickname for you. He called you Hooligan Herta.
Yeah, that was my nickname at Carlin, which is the team that we both raced for. I raced there for
Okay.
2 years. um and yeah, that was my name around the shop and around the team. I think it originated at a track called Thruxton, where I Lando was out of the car for something. I think he broke or something. It's just a test day, so he was watching. And where he was watching from, I broke too deep, and it was a sharp chicane at the end of the back straight. Um, and I went over the curb, and I caught maybe 2 feet of air. Of all four corners were off, and then I landed, and then I caught the back side of the curb, and it probably went up in the air about 4 feet. And there's a somebody actually got a photo of it, which is awesome, of this car just flying through midair,
Airborne.
all the corners. Yeah, all corners off, and then landed perfectly. Came in obviously because I thought the car was destroyed, but it was fine, and then kept running.
One more thing on Formula One. Valtteri Bottas has talked about his desire to see you in the circuit. Obviously, you have friends who are part of the circuit now. You could assimilate well into that world. When you think about where the next couple of years will take you, is the focus to just get more and more experience in that Formula One world to just make that a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like it's definitely a goal of mine. And in Formula One, it's so time sensitive, isn't it? Right? Like guys aren't coming in and when they're 24 or 25, which is it's crazy to think about that at that point you're already washed up in Formula One if you haven't gotten to it. So it is something that's extremely time sensitive, and I probably only have a couple of years to make it. So it is kind of on the front line of what the goal is right now. Um, and yeah, I mean, like I said, like it's just a testing program, but who knows, if I'm really fast in the car, and obviously if McLaren don't don't have anybody or Andretti can't get their bid into Formula One, people talk around the paddock, and if guys are saying how fast I am in a racing car, and especially people over there, yeah, it tends to open up doors and gives opportunity for people.
Well, I'm sure all the opportunities will be in front of you. I want to talk about a couple of other things. You play drums. You're a
I do.
member of the indie punk rock band The Zibs,
Yes.
which was formed just a few years ago with your high school friends, John and Chris. Tell me a little bit about
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, so I started playing drums when I was about eight, maybe, yeah, 8 or 9. And I really loved it. I stopped when I was about 12. Um, I picked it back up again when I was like 16, 17, when I came back from Europe. So I was probably like 17, 18. And yeah, I loved it, enjoyed playing, and my friends kind of got into playing their instruments as well. And like, oh, we should play together. So it just kind of all happened naturally, and then it's kind of come up to where it is now.
So indie punk rock imitating who? Who would you be most like? Is this kind of
It's, it's tough to say because we do a whole bunch of stuff. Because like we'll say like we're a typical genre, but then like we'll just make every kind of music. So it's tough to say exactly. I think the originally got a lot of inspiration from a guy named Ty Siegel.
okay?
Um, yeah, so he's not a huge name to everybody, but definitely if you like that type of like garage rock style, you definitely heard of him. Um, and yeah, he's amazing artist and plays everything: guitar, drums, bass, all these different instruments. So yeah, I loved his sound, and a lot of us listened to him, so we kind of imitated a lot of that early on, and then now we just do whatever we want. Like we'll make every type of, yeah, everything. And we have an album coming out in June, which kind of
Oh,
shows that it's not, you'll listen to it and you'll be like, what the hell are these guys doing? Like they're playing one thing and then the next song it's completely different. So it's not we tried to do something different, whereas a whole bunch of different styles in one album. So it'd be interesting.
when did you have a chance to spend time making an album?
I don't have a lot. It's taken us 2.5 years, so that kind of shows. It's hard not only because what I'm doing, but my friends are in college, right? So they don't have time either, and they also aren't. I live in Florida. They live in Los Angeles, so it's hard to. Although I do spend quite a bit of time in LA, it's hard to really get a lot of time. So during the summertime is when we are best able to get it done. And obviously during the summer I'm very busy, but I still typically get back home for Monday, at least Monday, and usually Tuesday also. So in that time period, it's taken a long time. That's why it's taken so long for us to make an album.
What's the name of the album?
I think it's going to be self-titled. I think it's just going to be called Sibs.
Which is perfect. That's how
Mhm.
how the first album should be for a band.
Exactly.
Are you a car guy? Do you spend a lot of time around vehicles that are not going 200 miles an hour?
I don't actually own a vehicle. Obviously the perks of being a race car driver is they give you loaner vehicles for the engine manufacturers that you drive for. So I get one from Honda and I also get one from BMW, which are two really cool engine manufacturers. So I have a Type R right now. And in the BMW in the past, I have an M4 right now, but I had an M5 competition package on that. And
Wow.
that was probably my favorite car that I've ever driven, and probably my favorite car ever. I'm building a new BMW, which I think I'm going to do the X6M. So
Wonderful.
something a little bit different. So that's really cool. And then for this year, I got a Honda Pilot, which is a little bit different than the Civic Type R, because my girlfriend can never, when we're in Indy and she comes for the month of May, she can't go anywhere because it's the Type R is obviously stick, so she doesn't know how to drive it, so she's just stranded here. So I got a Pilot, and I keep my Honda out here in Indy because I spend so much time out here, um, and so yeah, she'll be able to drive that too.
Amazing. Not owning your own car.
It's a great thing to have, it's a big commitment to buy a car, especially if you want a nice one. So it's amazing when they give it to you for free.
No kidding. As you look ahead and think about this Indy season, as you think about the Indy 500, what is it that excites you the most? What are you most looking forward to? Just the chance to compete?
Yeah, I think just getting on the track. It's like I said before, like it's such a special place. Like when you drive in under the tunnel and you come to this race, it's just goosebumps. And even if it's empty, it's amazing. So just getting the chance of opening days, obviously tomorrow. So just getting the chance of being out there and being able to drive it and getting that opportunity it's always special.
And as you think about your own career and how much progress you have made already, some of it's got to be a little bit head shaking for you. I mean, you just won at the road course at Indy, which I believe was win number 7, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in, and I've been able to win races every single year of my IndyCar career. So yeah, 7 wins in 4 years is astounding, and I give it to like the teams and opportunities that I've been given, right? Because most people when they come into this series, they need to prove themselves, and they are not given a chance at winning an IndyCar race for at least 1 year, and most of the time more years than that. So I was thrown into a program that was able to win right away. So for me, it's very special, and I definitely don't take it for granted that opportunity I've been given has been so special.
What will your dad say to you before you zip off and take the green flag at the 500?
Not really sure. Probably just to be safe and be smart, keep the head down. And that you need to be there for the last 20 laps, and so give up places where you have to, take them where you can, but yeah, all around just be a little safe until that last kind of quarter of the last 50 laps, I guess, the last quarter of the event.
Well, Colton, we wish you the best of luck. This is the month of Indy, the month of May, and you're right in the middle of it. And you have a incredible future ahead of you. Thanks for spending time with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was fun.
The automobile is one of the most important inventions that revolutionized the modern world. In America, the rich history of car culture runs deep as technology continues to shape the future of the industry. Jason Stein,
former publisher of Automotive News,
is here to share the stories of people passionate about cars, from industry leaders and innovators to car-obsessed celebrities. Buckle up as Jason takes you inside the boardroom, onto the track, and around the bend on Cars and Culture on SiriusXM Business Radio.